Hi, everyone. I'm Andrew Vaughan. I'm a cardiologist, and I've been involved in culinary medicine with the program at Health Meets Food since 2015. And I teach medical students our program at Marshall University in Huntington, West Virginia, and have for the last 5 years. And today, I volunteered to actually demonstrate how I, and many others actually, approach cutting and preparing an orange. Now, I'm a cardiologist, not a hand surgeon, so hopefully you don't see any blood here today, because if we do, I'm in trouble. So we'll start with these wonderful Valencia oranges. One thing I like to do is pop that pesky little stem out. So now you have basically a globe here, and it depends on how you want to either cut it on the equator or pole to pole will determine how we're going to actually end up with the actual piece of orange that'll be a garnish or something to eat or something to put in the kid's lunchbox. And so this is how we do it. First of all, a nice sharp knife. Now you can use a chef's knife like this, which I actually find the most helpful because you have a lot of control with that, even though it seems it's much larger than the orange. But also for tighter, careful work, as in when I'm going to supreme an orange, this can actually be helpful. And what you might also consider when doing the supreme, which I'll demonstrate in a bit, is actually using a serrated blade. The first cut we'll do is actually cutting rounds. And so in this case, we cut the orange up the equator and come up with this. And then you can take each half and you can make as many slices and as thick a slices as you want to come up with rounds like this. And these can be garnishes. They could be, depending on how thin you slice them, they could be added to something that you're baking. And they don't have to be perfect. The other way to do rounds is actually to take the orange before you cut it and actually take the peel off. So if you do this, and actually easier to do this is actually to do it like this, and then take the peel off all the way around, like so. And this can be a little daunting task, but a sharp blade and a flat surface will go a long way to making this work. Now you end up with this, and again, as I said earlier, you don't have to remove every ounce of the pith, but then if you take this, you can cut it like so, and you end up with a round without the rind. So this could be a garnish or it could be something to eat, however you like to use it. So that takes care of actually cutting rounds. The second technique is to actually cut the oranges into wedges. These are a different cut because in this time we're going to cut pole to pole as opposed to along the equator, which we did for the rounds. So as with the orange, it's always nice in any particular product that you're approaching on a cutting board that doesn't have a flat surface is to make a flat surface so it is stable. So I've taken each end off. We see the fresh fruit on the inside. You make a slice, and now you end up with something that looks like this. Now we're seeing the slices instead of in cross section, we're seeing them in long section. So then you can take each of these halves and you can cut a wedge from the center. Now the interesting part comes up, and I've seen this done several ways, but now we have wedges, is to rotate it now back to this and get rid of this center pith. And then you can make cuts all the way across and have beautiful wedges for eating. And there they are. So, and then you can repeat the step for the second half and end up with similar wedges. And this orange happens to have seeds, which isn't a bad thing, but you can simply remove those as well as you like. So the final cut today is to do a use of the orange anatomy to actually do a technique to isolate each of the wedges, separate from the membrane and separate from the pith and everything else of the orange peel. This is a little bit more technically demanding, but not difficult. So the first thing we'll do is start back with our orange. And again, we're working with a round object on a flat board. I like to take a flat surface off of each one so we have a nice stable object to cut. Now, we're going to take the peel off completely down to the fruit, including the pith. This is a little bit more complicated, and some of it takes a little bit of time to learn how to do this. So again, even using a chef's knife is okay. We will use the paring knife to finish the final product. So what we'll do is start, and you just work your way down the edge. And as you approach it, of course, it's going away from my line of sight. But if you just follow the edge of the fruit, you can get most of the pith. And if you take a little bit too much fruit, well, you can just get the juice out of those yourselves. But I'm actually doing okay, even though I'm not seeing where the knife's going. I'm getting all the pith away from that. In nice, smooth strokes of the knife. And when we end up, you end up with this lovely orange that's now been completely peeled. Now, to start with, first thing you need is a bowl to catch these beautiful wedges that are going to come. So you can see the membrane between each one, and you're going to cut just inside the membrane and cut down to the core on each one of these wedges of orange. And when you get down to the center, the wedge will fall out. And you can keep going, but what you'll leave is the core of the orange with the membranes attached. As you see, I'm having the membranes here, but you've got to do each side of the membrane for each wedge. So here we go. And as you get all the way around, you'll be left with this core of the orange, and the center left. So now we've completed bringing each of the wedges out of the center of the orange and out of the membranes between, and you're left with this. Well, don't just throw that away. It's a wonderful source of juice, and you can use that and squeeze it back into these oranges, or you can squeeze it in another container. But now we have perfectly supremed slices that are great for garnishes on a salad, or just for eating, or garnishes on a charcuterie board, or whatever you'd like to use them for. So those are the 3 or 4 ways that you can prepare an orange.